I'd like to open today's video with a bit of a thought exercise, all right? So bear with me. You arrive home from the gym. You absolutely stink. Stink to the high heavens. You are offensive to anyone around you. Do you, A, take a shower, or B, take a sledgehammer to your shower faucet and say, we're gonna build a whole new one before I shower? You're gonna take a shower, right? That's the obvious choice. Okay, cool, good. All right, so next one. You're out in the middle of the desert. You are so thirsty. And for the next dozen miles, there's no source of water nearby. You have one single water bottle in your hand, and it's full to the brim, ready to go. You either A, drink that water, or B, dump it all out on the ground. Probably go with A, right? You're thirsty. Okay, cool, good. I'm glad we're on the same page. All right, last one. You are a game publisher. You've built up a studio that releases smaller games, and you're looking for smaller games. So do you either A, let that team designed to make smaller games continue to make smaller games, or B, shut them down? It's probably A, right? Well, that's not the case for Xbox. Oh my gosh, do we have news to get into today. What happened in the last 24 hours is unbelievable. We have inside information on what Arcane Austin was cooking, a potential new Dishonored game. Hi-Fi Rush 2 was getting pitched. Xbox shut down Hi-Fi Rush and Tango Gameworks, but are looking for games like Hi-Fi Rush from Tango Gameworks. Make it make sense, dude. How is this possible? Let's read. Starting off with The Verge. Microsoft says it needs games like Hi-Fi Rush the day after killing its studio. Today, one day after Microsoft announced that it would shut down 4 of its game studios, Matt Booty, head of Xbox Game Studios, held a town hall to discuss the division's future goals. Quote, "We need smaller games that give us prestige and awards," Booty told employees, according to internal remarks shared with The Verge. Director of Hi-Fi Rush, John Johannes, shared this reaction to the news. And I've seen some people like MVG, who's been a game developer way longer than me, so he definitely knows better than me, saying that, well, Hi-Fi Rush necessarily isn't a smaller game, but I'm going to take the word of the director over this, that he's probably understanding Hi-Fi Rush was that type of game. It certainly wasn't a massive budget compared to what you would see for, you know, things like Halo, Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Doom. I think Hi-Fi Rush, comparatively speaking, is probably really cheap. And to see the game director's reaction like that likely suggests that's the case. I mean, Hi-Fi Rush literally fits the bill perfectly for this. It was a smaller game that won a bunch of awards at the Game Awards, got a lot of attention, a lot of media buzz. Did it sell a ton? I guess apparently not, although we don't know the truth at this point in time. Apparently it was a breakout hit, but then we see the studio get shut down. But nonetheless, Hi-Fi Rush was a game that fit everything Xbox is looking for, and they shut the team down. Now, the big question is why, and what's going on inside Xbox right now? Well, we have 2 different reports. One from Bloomberg, one from The Verge. Let's start off with The Verge because some of the tea spilled here is fascinating. Inside Xbox, there's now uncertainty about what the future holds and questions over Microsoft's gaming strategy. While Microsoft is looking toward a more PC-like future for its Xbox console, the company continues to battle a slowdown in Game Pass subscribers, lackluster Xbox console sales, and game launch delays. A combination of these events led to 4 previously Xbox-exclusive games launching on the PS5 recently, and some landing on Switch. I reported earlier this year that Microsoft had been considering bringing Gears of War to rival consoles, and we're still waiting to see if the long-rumored Gears of War collection is ever confirmed. Either way, I'm still expecting to see more Xbox games arrive on PS5 and Switch, and it'll be interesting to see if Xbox's Game Showcase in June announces any new things for rival hardware. Keep that in mind. We're actually going to circle back to this point in a couple of paragraphs. For now, we have to talk more about Game Pass because Xbox is at a literal fork in the road here, and I don't know if there's an easy answer. So let's read. Microsoft has also had internal debates about whether to put releases of Call of Duty into Game Pass. I understand this is a debate that has been ongoing internally for quite some time, with concerns from some that the revenue that Call of Duty typically generates for Activision Blizzard will be undermined by Game Pass. I'm told that Microsoft has also considered increasing the price of Game Pass Ultimate again. These are only considerations, so a final decision could mean we still see a future Call of Duty release appear in most versions of Game Pass. The debate internally reflects the fact that Microsoft's Xbox strategy has shifted from just delivering its games exclusively into Game Pass to considering bringing more Xbox games to multiple platforms. Number 1, how do you buy Activision Blizzard King and not have this be a decision already made? How is this a debate when you are committing to an almost $70 billion purchase, the biggest acquisition in all of games, and you don't know what you're going to do with the main thing you wanted to acquire in Call of Duty? You have no plan? You're figuring that out now? You're still debating it? Look, I get it's not an easy choice. Game Pass has absolutely shattered the Xbox economy, and we're seeing that play out in real time. Even me as a pro Game Pass head can absolutely admit that it's completely shattered the way that they can monetize games. Because here's the fork in the road. If you don't do it, it's another misstep in Xbox communication. Everything we do with Xbox and Activision and Bethesda is going to be included in Game Pass. That's been the message. In fact, if you look at the Xbox business update they just did, Sarah Bond literally said that Activision games are going to be put into Game Pass starting with Diablo 4. How do you say that and then potentially walk it back on Call of Duty? I don't want to speak too matter-of-factly because there's the potential it changes. The verdict is still out. But the fact that it's being debated, I get the fork in the road here. Because if you don't do it, you've just lied to your customers a ton. If you do it, you are risking losing a ton of money on the main thing that's going to dig you out of this hole. On the other hand, the best case scenario is it sells a lot and it actually draws new subscribers to Game Pass. But this goes to what I talked about a video or two ago now. I'm sorry, I'm losing a bit of track with how this story is just developing and how much we've had to talk about. But look, Game Pass Ultimate, I've said this thing's gonna go up if this is the future. I've always said, beware evil villain Xbox. That motto of mine was built around Game Pass, and it was built around a lot of the acquisitions that were happening, where Xbox was looking increasingly more and more benevolent, and that's why we were cheering them on. Certainly guilty as charged. I'm not gonna pretend I wasn't, but I always said, beware evil villain Xbox, because one day they're going to come and collect what's theirs. And that's including a Game Pass Ultimate price hike that will become a little bit more difficult to stomach. When they first hiked the price of Game Pass Ultimate, it was $1, I think, and most people went, hey, look, this service is amazing, I don't care. But now it's time to make money. You've spent almost $70 billion on Activision Blizzard King. It's time to make money. Are we going to put Call of Duty in Game Pass or no? If we do, that price might be going up to $20 a month. You can bet on it. That's my prediction personally. If it goes into Game Pass, that thing is $20 a month. Easy. They cannot afford to just throw this thing in there at the same price, maybe bump it $1 and go, all right, here you go. Because Call of Duty is such a massive draw that they are going to piss off the hardcore gamers with that move, but they will draw a ton of casuals in. Will it move the needle for Game Pass? We have yet to see. When I learned Starfield did not move the needle for Game Pass more than a single %, look, man, again, as someone who's a huge proponent of Game Pass, that is a scary fact that a game with as much hype and anticipation did not move the needle for Game Pass in a meaningful way. If Starfield can't, I think Call of Duty has a better shot, but what, is it going to move it 5% instead of 2%? That's not a big jump at all. So yes, they have a very tough decision to make. A decision that, in my humble opinion, should have been made very, very long ago. But here we are. And it shows again the indecisiveness, the lack of communication, where many times Xbox was asked about Activision games going into Game Pass, Call of Duty going to Game Pass, and many people, including myself, were kind of hand-waving their lack of answers because, look, with the FTC lurking overhead, they couldn't really say anything super committal, but only up until Diablo 4 were we starting to actually get Activision content in Game Pass. And the explanation then was, oh, well, they dumped all the Bethesda games in at once, and that probably wasn't smart for the service to build it out over time, right? You want to drip feed these things. That's how subscription services work. And Activision certainly has a plethora of content to gradually drip feed in. So I anticipate that that was the plan, but then you start to see more and more information come in, and it dramatically shifts the perspective. Let's continue on, building off of that original paragraph about Xbox games coming over to PlayStation here. The Verge writes, Xbox now has a strong lineup of games planned for 2024 with Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 set to debut in a matter of weeks on May 21st. I understand Hellblade 2 is another game that Microsoft has been considering for the PS5. If that ever happens, at this point, it's not even clear it would be considered a success. I'm going to talk about when we get to the Bloomberg article how I'm scared for Ninja Theory. I'm scared for companies like them, Double Fine, Compulsion. I'll even throw Obsidian in the mix. I am very worried with this direction Xbox is heading in that they are going to shut a lot of teams down. You thought Lionhead was bad? You thought these foreclosures were bad? Based on what we're about to learn with Bloomberg, which we'll get into in a moment, I'm very nervous for Hellblade. Where now we're seeing with things like Hi-Fi Rush that even a PS5 launch can't really save you. Xbox employees are now bracing for what's next, as it seems unlikely that we've seen the last of Microsoft gaming layoffs and cutbacks. There are whispers among employees that core Xbox game studios are set for cutbacks next. If Microsoft game studios can deliver all of these games on time, then there will be plenty to play on Xbox this holiday, with a new Gears of War title expected to be announced during the Xbox Summer Showcase, alongside some release dates for other anticipated Xbox games. Microsoft will be banking on some new game announcements lifting the doom around Xbox, but the company's gaming strategy still looks unclear, and the challenges run deeper than a handful of holiday launches. I'm just going to throw it out there that this looks like Tom Warren is teasing that Doom will be revealed at the Xbox Showcase. I think it's about time for that. But more importantly is the point that we were getting to beforehand, which is more layoffs. More layoffs. We saw 1,900 at the top of the year, and we had 4 studios close. The scary part is there's no predicting what's going to happen next. And I imagine, again, Ninja Theory is probably going to get targeted because it's not getting very much marketing. And this is a game that's coming out in a couple of weeks. It's definitely the artsy-fartsy style game that Xbox seems to be running in the opposite direction from. It seems like that Hi-Fi Rush style title, which is a smaller game that can win them a lot of prestige and awards, but maybe won't sell a lot of units, won't move a lot of Game Pass subscriptions. Does that fit the bill for what Xbox is looking for? Oh man, it's looking like a massive shakeup is incoming again. Where my prediction is by the first half of 2025, we're going to see another set of potential layoffs and closures, just because at that point you have the holiday window shakeout. What did Obsidian do? What did Bethesda Game Studios do with Shattered Space? What did Machine Games do with Indiana Jones? You get to see all of that play out, because now we're seeing with a tremendous success like Hi-Fi Rush and a tremendous failure in Redfall, no one is safe. So we're going to see a lot of decisions be made in the next year or so. And again, I'm not saying this for fake outrage. I'm not saying this to fearmonger. I am, as a fan of games, legitimately scared for what's going to happen to some of these companies that I love. And that's really sad, because once you get into the decision-making process, Xbox absolutely easily could have done something about this. Let's shift gears over to Bloomberg, where they write, during a town hall with ZeniMax staff on Wednesday morning, Xbox president Matt Booty praised Hi-Fi Rush, but did not specify why the company had shut down the development studio behind it, according to 3 people who were in attendance. Speaking about the closures more broadly, Booty said that the company's studios had been spread too thin, like peanut butter on bread, and that leaders across the division had felt understaffed. They decided to close these studios to free up resources elsewhere, he said. Booty added that the shutdown of subsidiary Arcane Austin, the longtime developer of games such as Prey, was not connected to the performance of its new multiplayer game Redfall, a critical and commercial flop. Before its closure, Arcane had been looking to return to its roots by pitching a new single-player immersive sim game, such as a new entry in the Dishonored series, according to people familiar. This is the biggest gut punch of it all for me right now, really. Many of you know I love Dishonored. It is probably my favorite immersive sim series. When Redfall came out, the amount of people I pushed toward Dishonored, I said, look what these types of teams at Arcane are capable of. I know Prey was from Austin, that was another one, but Dishonored, especially with the choice and consequence, the morality, the multiple play styles. Dishonored 2 is an absolute masterclass in level design, replayability, exploration, interaction. It is phenomenal. I absolutely adore Dishonored. And one thing that really upset me with Redfall is what happened to Arcane. I just couldn't believe that this had come out of this team. And again, I know that's the Prey team, not the Dishonored team, but there was a DNA, a blood there that showed they were capable of making great games like Dishonored. And so to know that Redfall wasn't the reason, then what was the reason? The thing that I can't wrap my head around is Matt Booty's reasoning in his email was, look, we're going to focus on high-profile IP. Why couldn't either of these teams in Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks be fed one of these popular Bethesda IPs? Because they're spread too thin? Higher up, dude. You just laid off a ton of people. What? This is what I'm talking about. Why are you going lean when to keep things running the way you just said at the top of this video you wanted, which are smaller games that earn prestige rewards? You're telling me that because they're spread thin, that's why they had to get shut down? It's not even the fault of the game's performance? Dude, staff up. Jill Braff, head of ZeniMax Studios, said in a town hall that she hoped the reorganization would allow the division, which also develops Fallout and Doom, to put more focus on fewer projects. Quote, it's hard to support all 9 studios across the world with a lean central team with an ever-growing plate of things to do, end quote, she said, according to audio of the meeting reviewed by Bloomberg. Quote, I think we're about to topple over, end quote, she added. Both Tango and Arcane released games last year and were looking to hire additional staff as they pitched new projects, which Booty and Braff suggested was the main factor behind their closure. Shinji Mikami, Tango's founder and studio head, departed last year. So, remember when I said earlier how I'm very scared for companies like Ninja Theory, Double Fine, Obsidian, Compulsion? These companies were invited into the Xbox family under the mantra of, hey, we're going to embrace the smaller games and we're also going to make high profile games, and through Game Pass, we're going to have a little bit of everything here. And this was a vision that many a team bought into. To see that after success and failure, when you're going to make your next game and you have to staff up, that you are going to get shut down. What does that say to a company like Ninja Theory that's about to launch a game? For those who don't know, as you get closer to the release of a game, you staff up. You start doing more QA, you clean up any missing parts of the project, art polish, programming polish, just anything to tidy it up, right? You're not going to add new content in a tremendous way. You're really just tightening the whole experience up at this point. So you staff up a little bit more. And then at the end of the project, when it releases, the staff falls off, you keep the core team, and then you start building out again as the project, a new direction gains momentum. What this communicates is that there's, number one, no chance that games like Hellblade 2 are going to move the needle for Xbox. And number two, when they walk into that same direction that every other game company does, which is, okay, it's time to staff up, we're going to work on this next, that they will likely be shut down. Although Xbox's logic has been wildly inconsistent, where, again, 343 survived, the Initiative continues to somehow survive, which blows my mind. But yet, we have companies like Tango getting shut down, Arcane Austin getting shut down. What makes what's going on at Ninja Theory any different? I'm not advocating for it, of course. I know some people interpret it that way, but I'm just trying to speak very matter of fact that what makes the logic very different here? What does? And only thing I can say here is Xbox is wildly unpredictable, and they'll either find a reason to keep them around or get rid of them. While there's no indication that Xbox plans to ditch the Game Pass model, there are hints that its big bets have not paid off. During the most recent quarter, sales of Xbox content and services were up 62%, but as Nico Partners analyst Daniel Ahmad pointed out last month, the growth was entirely to do with the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. On social media, he noted without the sales from the deal, Xbox gaming revenue would have been down approximately 5% year over year, with no software and service growth and sharp hardware revenue decline. So yeah, without Activision, which is why Xbox went so hard to get them, the brand would be dying out. They'd be losing money. And so that's probably why they're trimming the fat here, even in areas that they never needed to, because the brand's not growing. Why is it not growing? You launched a new system with no games. You failed to deliver promises for most of these years. 2022 had no games. It goes well above and beyond just what's happening now for those who are in a very emotional, reactionary state. This is a sequence of actions. The fact that at the top of this year, we were talking about the, quote, death of Xbox, end quote, and literally considering if that was a thing happening because they were going multi-platform. This is a company not pursuing greed, how many people have branded it. This is a company pursuing survivability. They are trying to stay afloat. And like any company, they will go above and beyond to do so. That means that they're going to do things you don't like. They're going to continue to bring games, possibly even quicker than you expected, over to PlayStation and Switch from the Xbox ecosystem. That means things like Starfield. That means things like Halo. That means things like Gears, Fable. The list goes on. They're going to become a multi-platform company, without a doubt. This means hardware will not be a focus for them in a big, meaningful way, but rather a more Valve-like approach. You have this big storefront. They're available on any PC. You have things like the Steam Deck that you can play your games from Steam on, but otherwise, they're just there to collect your money from software sales. As they pursue that Steam-like model, Valve has a number of internal teams, not to the number of Xbox, and so I imagine Xbox will continue to trim the fat until they're nice and lean and able to just function like Valve, but in the console space. So yeah, they're in for a massive amount of changes, and that's why this revenue is down. It's not just one event and people reacted. The only thing that they've been reliable for is being inconsistent, and that's the worst thing you can be in the games business, is inconsistent. It even goes down to things like YouTube. People always wonder, like, how'd you launch multiple channels, Matty? How are you finding success in these channels? It's not because, like, I think I'm really good. It's because I'm consistent. You can rely on the fact that I'll be there. I'll be there for these conversations. I'll be there on Retro Rebound. I'll be there on Rewind, and so on. Reliability and consistency is the main thing people buy into. You can have the nicest video, for example. You can have the nicest games, for example. Xbox has many great games. It's not enough if you're not consistent. You're not there all around the year. For example, this year, you have so many games in the pipeline, and your first big launch is in May. And that might be acceptable at a certain point, but when you've promised quarterly games and you have nothing in the first quarter, I mean, it spells it out so blatantly. There we go. That's what's going on with Xbox. Frustration continuing to really mount, especially on my end, man. It's sickening. It's sickening how bad they are at their jobs from my point of view. So I leave it in your hands. I'm curious to see your thoughts. Maybe we'll be back tomorrow to talk about this again, because this story just continues to develop in ways that don't surprise, but definitely disappoint. So fire away down below. With that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.